Good day and welcome to today's Conversation podcast. Today I'm privileged to host, a lady, a woman who's been associated with our civil society in Zambia and South Africa. She spent over 25 years working in various roles and initiatives to strengthen our governance system. She's currently serving as Executive Director for the Alliance for Community Action. Her name is Laura Miti, an unmistakable name in our country. Laura, welcome to today's Conversation podcast. And allow me to call you Laura.
What else would you call me?
Miss Miti, I'm an ambassador.
Thank you, Emmanuel.
Yeah, thank you. Mm-hmm. You are well known to our country as these very strong voices against power. You speak truth to power. It doesn't matter whether it's Chiluba, it's Mwanawasa, Rupia Banda, or it's Michael Sata, or Edgar Lungu, or Hakainde Hichilema. People would like to know, who is Laura Miti? What makes Laura Miti? Let's take a small journey in your brief life history.
That's always a difficult question to answer, but let me try. So, I suppose it depends which Laura you're talking about. So there are two Lauras.
Yeah.
There's the public Laura, and there's the private Laura. And the two are so different that they are rarely in the same room together. I think ever in the same room together. So, what do you want me to start with, the private Laura or the
Let's
private?
start. Which school did you go to? Your formation. We want to understand maybe what grounds your views.
Okay, so I was born in Mongu to a father who was a civil servant. So my father at independence was one of the lucky ones to have an education. So he was kind of high up in the Ministry of Agriculture. My mother was a teacher. So yes, being a civil servant meant we lived in different parts of the country. So I was born in Mongu. I started my primary school at what was called Prince Charles Primary School in Kitwe, which is now Matete, I think. And then we lived in Monze, where I went to Monze Infants. We lived in Choma, where I went to Adastra. And then we landed in Chilanga, where I did my primary school up to grade 7. And from there, I went to Roma Girls Secondary School and the University of Zambia. And essentially, that was it. So I think I grew up.
Did you pick the languages in places you went to? For example, did you pick some Lozi? Did you pick some Tonga? Did you pick some Bemba?
Yes. So I can understand Tonga perfect. At one time, so my parents allowed us to speak whatever language was being spoken
in the environment
where we lived, yes. So my first language was Shona, because my mother was Shona.
Yeah.
So my first language when I think was Shona. And then I spoke Tonga. So kind of Shona was sidelined a little bit. I spoke Tonga, spoke English before starting school, and then Nyanja.
Yes.
And then I can speak Lozi, but that's because my best friend in high school was Lozi, but understand Lozi. Unfortunately, all of these other languages, I can understand them perfectly, but my spoken has kind of been sidelined. So,
yeah, because language comes with practice.
Yes, so Shona, Tonga, and Lozi, I understand perfectly, but can probably hold a basic conversation, but not much more. So then, because we then lived in Lusaka from the time I was 7, 8 all the way, Nyanja then became the language we spoke. So, for example, my mother, I called her Mama as a child because I was speaking Shona. Then I called her Mama
which is Tonga
at some point. And then Amai. And then she died, Amai. That's how it was. And I think that's how it was, at least in my generation. You moved so much, if you were in the civil service. And I think people ended up, there are a lot of people who do not speak the language of their tribe. I think we ended up with Nyanja because we were lucky we were here. But I think had we stayed longer in the southern province, I would be properly Tonga.
Dr. Kaunda, the deliberate policy if you're a Tonga, he sent you to a non-Tonga area. If
Yes.
you're a Bemba, he sent you to a non-Bemba area.
Yes.
I think his mission to unite this country was so practical, even in policies. And that's why you found civil servants across the country serving from areas they were not born or it was not their tribe. And I think that was a good policy. At the university, what did you study and what was your experience at the university? Did you begin your activism at the university?
Not really. Well, you see, it's very difficult to say when I began what is called activism.
Yeah.
I don't think I ever even thought of anything as activism until the name began to be, as it were, I was dressed up in the name. But I never at any point in my life thought of myself
Decide that
I'm an activist, no. But at the university, I studied education with English. And then I was very, very born again as they come. So as a very devout Christian, so my university life is generally in the fellowship. So University Christian Fellowship, and then North Mid Assembly of God, Youth Fellowship. So let me just say, because I became a Christian when I was 13, so I spent my whole youth either at church, youth camp, or watching soccer at the Independence Stadium. So that was my interest. I did a lot of watching soccer. I used to watch soccer everywhere. Edwin Imbowela, Woodlands, things. So I was probably usually the only girl.
Following the matches.
Yes, following the matches. I'd go to Kada, I'd go to Power, anywhere I could.
Did you have a team you were supporting?
Power.
Oh, Power Dynamos.
Power Dynamos was my team, yes.
But they're based on the Copper Belt. So you traveled to Copper Belt?
I traveled to Copper Belt, yes. But I think at the time they were really good. Remember Power 90 and all. So, yes. So, but my youth was that. So my youth was church, soccer, or reading, I suppose. Yeah.
When you finished university, English and what you studied, did you go teaching? What did you decide with your life?
No, first I went to Parliament. So I worked at Parliament.
Oh, at the National Assembly?
National Assembly, yes. So I was in the research department, which I quite enjoyed, under Mulikita. And then when MMD came into office, I was fired because before MMD came into office, there had been rumors around Parliament that Mr. Chiwe Sakunda would come back. Because remember, Mr. Chiwe Sakunda had been fired by Kaunda for, well, some kind of dishonesty, as I remember, financial dishonesty. So he had been fired. So there was just talk around Parliament. And I remember sitting at lunch one day and saying, but how will he come back? Wasn't he fired because he stole? When he came back, someone told him that you said. That I said,
how
yes.
would they bring him back when he allegedly stole?
And by then I was really a small, thin little girl. So then they held this disciplinary meeting for me.
Over those remarks?
Yes, a whole room full of all the managers, and they called me in, and they had the witness, Mr. Lungu, as I remember, sitting there looking a little bit sheepish. And so they asked me, did you say the clerk would not come back because he has stolen? And I said, yes. And that was the end. Wow. It was a 1 minute thing. I mean, they almost fell. They almost fell off there.
They expected you to deny it.
I said yes, but I didn't. I mean, he wasn't my boss. It was a conversation at lunch. It was an opinion. So, I did. So they gave me a discharge, which was one of the best things that ever happened to me, because I don't think I'd have left Parliament. The pay was good. The pay was good. I mean, I was a little girl and I had so much money. I didn't know what to do with it. And I remember people would stop me in the corridors, like older people, because it didn't matter what your age was, as you can imagine. As long as you had a degree, you got a certain
grade.
Yes. Yeah. And so people with homes and children in school and responsibilities, they'll stop me and say, kind of thing. Yeah. So there's lots of money. But also when Mr. Mulikita was there, he was an amazing speaker. And Parliament is extremely hierarchical. So I was just kind of entry level. But in our department, which was research, one of our duties was to write speeches for the speaker, for visiting or delegations going out of the country, the clerk, and that kind of thing. And so when you wrote, it was those days of typewriters before computers. So you'd write your speech.
And then type it out.
No, you'd give it to the typing pool. Then the typing
okay.
pool would type it, you'd look at it, and then you'd give it to your boss, who gave it to his boss, who gave it to his boss. It went all the way up, say, to the speaker. And if the speaker would make comments, Mulikita especially would make comments, because he was a very astute, great reader and all. Then you'd make comments, and then you'd come right down that route, person to person, back to you. And he liked my writing.
Okay.
So he happened to think. So, and he didn't know me, but I think one or two pieces after, he asked to see me.
Who is this?
Who's this?
Like
yes.
this?
And then, of course, the request to see you, or the instruction to see you, comes again right down. So everybody, the whole parliament knows. And so I went to see him, and I remember the first time I went to see him, he said to me, okay, so I don't agree with this line, but you have to convince me. If you convince me, I'll read it. Okay? So we had a conversation, and I convinced him, and he read it. And from then on, I almost became like his personal writer, I write his things. But then, of course, maybe that's what got me in trouble. Because as you know, in these places, you're just a little girl, and you've got the eye of the speaker. But what I'd say is that had Mulikita remained speaker, it was a really strong parliament. No speaker after him has been as balanced, fair, because you'd sit there, very, very objective. Every speaker after that does the bidding of the
government,
of the ruling party, one way or another. But he was very objective, and he really believed in the stuff, and very easygoing. Like I said, it's very hierarchical, but he was extremely.
You break down those hierarchies.
Yes, extremely easy. So that's what happened. So I got fired, and then. I went to, as a new graduate, already with
good experience, but now dismissed.
No, I was already dismissed. You know what I mean? Kind of a 22-year-old already, you'd be fired. So I then went to work. I went to the Ministry of Education and got a job and began to teach at Arakan Barracks. So Arakan Secondary School, where I taught English. Really enjoyed that. I think as a grade 8, 10, intelligent, I think. I think it was full of children of generals and stuff like that. And these kids were so...
Spoiled children.
Not really. They were not spoiled. They were just not confident. I think teachers treated them as lesser than intelligence. They gave it to me. And I really enjoyed that class. I got in and relaxed them. We played games and all. And they did brilliantly. I think they all went and did English related careers afterwards. Afterwards... They were smart kids. They were just children. It's not fair to label children. So I taught that class, and then
children are blank slates. Is what we put in. Is what
well,
makes them.
I suppose you can. I mean, they are intelligent children. They are less intelligent children, but there's no child that cannot learn. I mean, you can't say this child is impossible to teach. So you come in as an attitude as a teacher. I think that's wrong. Yeah. So I'd go with newspapers, magazines, would play, and they became quite confident. Then I ran into Mrs. Sichone.
This is Lucy Sichone.
Lucy Sichone. I don't even know. I can't even remember how. But I think it was from my friend Tina. And she was starting Zambia Civic Education from the scratch. And as you remember, it was one of the very first civil society organizations as we know them now, like the NGOs as we know them now. And she convinced 4 of us to resign our jobs. Wow. There was no money. She had no money, nothing. She hadn't
found any money at all.
So 4 of us plus her started Zambia Civic Education. No salaries for about 6 months. Should appear with 10 chickens and distribute them to us, kind of thing.
Wow.
And then that's how I joined civil society and never looked back. So while working at Zambia, that was amazing. So Lucy was an extremely intelligent human being, deep thinker, reader, like she loved the Bible, almost like a book of literature, and generally just an amazing person. And one thing that was really, what can I say? I think the best part in working under her was how she respected your capacity to think.
Okay.
So it was not hierarchical. We'd have these massive debates, and we would argue and stuff, If
She didn't come, I'm right, I'm
no,
the boss.
no.
Yeah.
She did it,
Yeah.
And she liked me to edit her pieces. The pieces she'd write Lucy on Tuesday, and I would edit them. But, she would just let us debate issues in the country. She was UNEP, we didn't agree. Kebi Musokotwane, remember at the time she was dating Kebi Musokotwane.
Yeah.
She told us something that he wasn't particularly intelligent, but she loved him. And then we went for dinner at her house, and she just sat quietly, and we ripped him apart. We just ripped him apart for
Or his
UNEP.
beliefs and
Yes,
his,
and she was
his
sitting there,
thinking.
and that's how
And she allowed the debate to go on.
She just allowed us, that's come for dinner.
Yeah, that was gracious, yeah.
You meet my guy, kind of,
No, it was big to our, especially young audience. They might don't know who Kebi Musokotwane was. He was our last prime minister under UNEP.
Yeah.
And then I think he became UNEP president.
UNEP president,
when
yes.
Dr. Kaunda retired. So just for our young audience, they may not know who this man,
was.
big man in the country were ripping apart.
And we were just
What was the
early
debate all
20s.
about? Would you remember?
I can't remember. I think it was UNEP had already lost then.
Yes.
So
The
it was
lack
in
of
the
power.
days
He
when
was trying to reorganize.
He was trying
it.
to reorganize UNEP, and we were telling him how it won't really work. And Lucy had joined UNEP against everybody else's judgment, and I think to everybody's shock. But she said she felt that you needed a strong opposition
for that principle.
So we went there. She took us to State House to see President Chiluba. And I'm trying to remember what the problem, what the issue was there, but we were very unhappy with him. I think it was the early constitutional changes.
Yeah.
So it was Tina, my friend, and myself. And even there she sat quietly. And we dug into the president. We just...
She unleashed you.
She used to call us my girls.
Yeah.
So she would just unleash us.
Yeah, my girls will speak.
And President Chiluba was in shock. I don't think anybody had
spoken
ever
to him
spoken to him like
in that manner.
Yes, we told him he was wrong. I don't think Lucy was ever invited to State House after that. And so...
the next we see is Lucy at the airport as a lone protest when the president was arriving. I don't know where he was arriving from. And the police were so offended.
The police were offended. We were at the office, when she was writing that, and we were laughing, Auntie Lucy. We call Auntie Lucy or Mrs. S. But yes, it was a very expansive and expanding environment. And I think... had she lived, she probably would have been president, that woman. She probably would have been the first president in this country. But also there are things that happened, I think, that would not have, because politicians used to look over their shoulder at what she said, and what Zambia Civic Education said. So she then died, and then I left. I got married. I met my ex-husband through Lucy, actually. So they used to work together. No, they were together on the Commission of Inquiry on the Constitution. That's how they met. So one time, he came into Zambia Civic and found us really upset with her over her marrying Kebi.
Okay, yes.
And so we were telling her how she was embarrassing us and blah, 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 And so, as well, then, I think...
Why did you think she was embarrassing you or embarrassing the movement?
Well, she
was coming down to politicians?
No, second wife and all that, and out of the blue. And, what's going on?
She was a banner and logo for women and women's rights movement.
No, she wasn't. She wasn't into women's rights as such.
Okay, human rights, maybe.
Human rights, yes, but not. She wasn't really into women's rights. Just like me, we just used to think, okay. So Zambia Civic wasn't very women's rights, and I've never been really okay. I believe in women's rights, but I'm not a feminist. I'm not a feminist.
Okay.
Yeah, and she wasn't.
That's a good clarification.
Yes.
And she wasn't a feminist.
She wasn't a feminist either in Zambia Civic. So our take of things wasn't really
on governance.
On
governance.
Yes. So we didn't really take things from a feminist view, but we just did not think she should go and get married to someone else's husband and all these kind of things. So we were really upset with her. She was defending herself, and so when I met Azu on the day he came to the office, and I think. So the next day, he came again the next day, and he said something to the effect like, he couldn't believe how we were again,
railing against the boss.
Our boss, And then he said something like, "Akanzeka kwatila," that's what he said,
Just like a joke.
Yes, akanzeka kwatila, and yeah, the rest is history.
So for the record, this is Azo Banda,
Yes.
who was Secretary General of
Zadeko. No, but I think he was best known as President General of UNZA. I think he was President General of UNZA. So yes, I think he was. I think other than BY Yuyi thing, Brian Yuyi.
Yeah, Brian Yuyi.
Yes, BY. These are the two, I think, presidents who were best known at UNZA. I mean, like they were real presidents. They were very powerful. And Azo was a president under counter, so that was very difficult. But anyway, so I years later.
So this is the time we see you silent, because I think you relocated to South Africa.
Yes, so I relocated to South Africa. Then I began to write in the Post.
Yeah, you began
to write in the Post. But all my years of writing in the Post, I was writing
from South Africa.
From South Africa.
Ah, okay.
Yes.
Okay.
And then after we divorced, I came back because I'd never wanted to live in South Africa. I did not enjoy South Africa. I was only there because the chap I loved happened to go to South Africa. So, but every day I'd say to the kids, I'll go back to Zambia. Why? Why? It's so dusty there and stuff like that. But as soon as I could, so as soon as we divorced, and then a couple of years of working in South Africa, I took the first chance to come back.
When you were in South Africa, other than writing for the columnists, did you join civil society there?
No.
Did you become active, or you just became...
I was a housewife.
A housewife, okay.
One of the best times of my life. It was nice.
Okay.
Sitting at home, someone else bringing the
money. Yeah,
it was really great actually. So I was a housewife. I was mom to our 4 boys, and but I used to write in the paper.
Yeah, in the paper.
So I used to write in the paper there in South Africa.
Oh, even in South Africa.
Yes. So I used to write for the Daily Dispatch. My column became very popular, extremely. That's how people got to know
me. On the
me.
Daily Dispatch, what were you writing?
The same thing. It was just commentary, almost like I was writing in the Post. So it was commentary on South African politics, very anti-ANC. Well, the ANC had already began going declining. I would comment on their racism. But yes, it became a very popular columm. Yes. Once in a while, I would host public forums for them and that kind of thing. But in terms of working, no, I wasn't working.
No, that was work. It requires a lot of research. It requires a lot of reading. Yeah.
Yes, and then I did my master's.
Okay.
Yes, I did my master's. I only started working after we divorced because then, I needed the money. So so I went to Rhodes University.
Rhodes University.
Yes, I was a University Public Service Accountability Monitor. Luckily for me, it was a job in which I was responsible for Zambia. So I was working in South Africa in an organization that had projects across the
Southern Africa.
Yes, and I was responsible for Zambia, and that was another really. So I'd come home and be given money to come home. You see what I mean? DSA to come home.
Which was a great opportunity just to come home.
Yes,
you're paid.
I'm paid. A car is hired for me and blah. I used that job to set up the Alliance for Community Action.
Ah, okay.
Yes, because then
and as a launch pad, when you finally come back,
exactly,
you said I should find where my feet.
Yes, because the exact accountability work the ACA does is what we were doing in Rhodes. And my job was to support civil society here doing that kind of work. So, but they knew. So I set up ACA and all, and then the final decision for me to come is that my mother fell unwell. My mother was unwell, and I just thought I was probably the best person to take care of her. Both my sisters were married, and I just think that somehow couples don't do very well in taking care of old people. I think a single woman especially is the best person to take care of an ailing thing. So I came back and arranged my home around my mother, and so I came back and I think I took a 90% cut in my salary. ACA had no money. I went back to almost the Zambia Civic Education, no money, nothing,
starting just from
starting
scratch.
From absolutely zero. But the ACA grew to what it is now, and that's how I came back to Zambia.
Okay. the activism, I think you've established that it came just through your work at Zambia Civic Education, and even your work in South Africa and columns. Like you are saying, you didn't wear a jacket that I'm now an activist.
No, but I think I was pre-wired. I think I was born to care about issues of justice. So, because even as a little girl, I used to be really bothered about things like bullying. I used to be bothered about poverty. So I came from a fairly, not well-to-do, but better than most family. Because like I said, my dad was educated. My uncle was general manager of ZESCO, and he was very close to me. So he essentially, my dad was kind of irresponsible. So they exchanged roles. My uncle became like a dad. So he's the one who...
Why? What happened to dad? When he gets paid, he would miss home.
My dad was something. So my dad and mom divorced. My dad was liked girls, and so they divorced. But he was an amazing person. My dad. He was lovely. He was a great reader, a great writer. Both my parents were brilliant writers. So we grew up around books, and he was just amazing. But he'd lose jobs, because I don't know whether it was a drink. So he'd get a brilliant job. He's general manager. I remember it was Dairy Mail those days. It was
DPB for the milk.
Yes, for the milk. Yes. So he was running their farm. It was beautiful. Milo,
he's lost his job.
He's lost his job. So he wasn't should I say stable provider. But when he had the money,
he spoiled all
you'd arrive with a van with bicycles and all. And at the time, we're now living in Musamba in Chilanga with my mom. So I kind of grew up in two worlds, a very upper class world, and then Musamba was
Matero Township. Yeah,
maybe. I think Musamba was Matero. I remember the first time we landed there, my eyes were big. I could not.
Where have we come?
I could not believe it. We slept on the floor on a mattress, and there was noise. I just couldn't believe it. But then, me being me, I just, I completely immersed myself to my mother's shock. I think my mother just thought she was losing me because my mother and my elder sister was a bit of a snob. So we were living in Musamba, but going to Parklands, which was I think equivalent of what you call a private school now. Those days we used to call them fee-paying schools. So at school, like I say, two worlds. At school, I was with the with bus to school, kind of thing. White kids in class, just completely different world. Then I knock off. I go home. I go to Kumbambera. I was just, I was something. And my sister, they'd call me at home. I'm Laura Mary, so they'd call me Mary. And my sister would say, kind of, what's your problem? So I had thick friends. But I was also a really voracious reader. So I'll go and play in the dust and do all the madness. Then I would withdraw and I would read. By the time I was in grade 5, I was reading maybe university level books, So when I remember when I first went to Roma, I was reading Roots, and it was this thick book.
Yeah, the Roots is a very big book, yes.
And I didn't know that other kids didn't read. Like I did. So the Form 5s, then grade 12s were stopping me. The teachers were stopping me, like, are you reading this book? And I couldn't understand what they were on about.
Because you read more of those.
Yes. I read, and I was also very political as a little girl. So it's only later on when I realized that the things used to bother me as a 10-year, 11-year-old did not bother other children.
Okay.
And I think it's because, again, of my mother. My mother would make me read to her newspapers.
Okay.
So she would tell me, read this story and this story and this story. And she'd be lying on the couch and I'll be reading to her. And somewhere along the way...
You got interested.
I got interested. So I'd begin to follow these stories myself. And I remember, I think it was in 1979, I must have been 11 or 12, when Kaunda stopped Nkumbula and Kapwepwe from standing for the presidency because he said they changed the constitution, the UNIP constitution, to say you should have been 5 years in the UNIP.
The 1978.
There's some things you politicians do. You know,
Yeah.
you haven't stopped. You know, so, you know, this crazy.
There was a UNIP Congress coming up in 1978, you know, when one party state, they had brought everyone, including Kumbula and someone in Lusaka-Wed, into UNIP, trying to make the one party work.
Yes.
But by 1978, I think the frictions were coming on, and Kapwepwe and Nkumbula all wanted to stand. And then they were bad. And remember, there's a story of Kapwepwe being beaten in Kamwala.
Yes.
So that period,
yes. And I was so upset. But I was just a little girl. I was in grade 7.
Yeah.
But I remember thinking, how can he do this?
Why don't they allow them to participate?
Because they allow them to participate. But it's only later on that I thought people didn't even know the name Kapwepwe. You know, like other 10, 11-year-olds didn't even know the name Kapwepwe. I used to feel really sorry we lived, like I say. So it was like almost like a two-world thing for me, because inside our house, so my mother was a diva. My mother was a wannabe. So my mother, you know, maybe the reason I don't wear makeup and stuff, because my mother did it for me. You know, my mother was stunningly beautiful. I mean, like my mother was a looker.
Yeah.
So
and she would wear makeup and
she'd wear
beautiful.
makeup and she'd dress up, and we were reborn. You know, her children reborn. Prams, we had birthdays. Now, this is in an area which people don't know their birthdays. Forget having a birthday party. So we would play the whole day, but when we entered our home, it was very middle class. It's still very much within the township, but very middle class. You know, the whole reading, going to town, going to the zoo, and that kind of thing. Then when you go outside, you know, it is a completely different world, proper company. And like I said, I was the only one in the house. Yeah, I used to get whippings. Because
you do all the adventure outside.
Yes, I used to do all that. But I think it produced who I am. Two people. You know, I can operate at the highest levels, and I can operate at the lowest levels. And neither of them is a pretense. You know, neither of them is a pretense. Because, you know, like if my uncle picks us, we would fly, would go to Kasaba Bay, would go to the trade fair, and that kind of thing. My uncle was general manager of Zesco, so we're driven to school by a driver, and that kind of thing. But at home, we're very much in the township. So somehow...
And even there, you fit in properly.
I used to fit in absolutely properly, you know. I mean, my mother would make us wear shoes. I would go outside, and then I would take them off and throw them into the yard. Because
you don't need them out there.
I'm not going to be the only one wearing shoes. But it produced, I think, a balanced person, you know, very balanced. And then because my mother... My mother was a strong personality. My mother had limited education. I mean, you know, those days you could be a teacher when you're after Form 2. So she was a teacher, but extremely informed. There is nothing, you know, her friends
just
were...
like the newspapers you were saying, that she would ask you to read the newspapers.
Exactly. So she was high, and, you know, Justice Florence Mwamba was her friend. So I grew up hearing these names, you know, like... Florence Mwamba, Irene Mambelema. I don't know where she met them, but those people were her friends. Michael Sata, you know, she really liked Michael Sata, you know, and Edgar Lungu.
Oh, even Edgar Lungu?
Yeah, so we had, she told me, see, you know, why can't you just leave the guy glowed? He's a good guy. You know, but yes, you know, so what I'm saying is that one thing she taught me was that people are people. You know, my mother never used to preach. She wasn't someone who would say to you, you must be kind, or you must be this, or you must be respectful. She just showed you, you know. And so in our home, for example, I grew up in a home in which from the time I was born, all our life, we had the house helpers, because it was that kind of home. And like I said, we had staff. But when a relative came or someone came, there was no way you could look down on them if you wanted to survive my mother. You know, she taught us that people are just people. I think where she probably destroyed me was this disdain I have for leaders. You know, she taught me that leaders are just people. You know, if you see what I mean. So she taught me that you respect people, but you don't fear them. You know, nobody needs to be worshipped. And that you should never expect anybody to worship you in return. And so it's something. I can say I sucked at the breast.
Yeah.
So I don't, I don't go around thinking that I'm going to say this to this person, I'm going to do this. It is more a case of, is this right, is it wrong? Is it just, is it unjust? Okay. So if I think it's unjust, it doesn't matter.
Who's involved?
It doesn't matter. So I've had a few UPND people come to me who are upset that I criticize the UPNDs. So I said, one, I'm not UPND. Okay.
No, they think you left it. Okay. They think you have an obligation to protect President Hakainde.
So I said, no, I'm not UPND. I've never been a member of a political party. That's one thing. That's one thing. Secondly, everything I ever said when UPND was in opposition was because I believed it. I really believed that this was wrong. PF was wrong in this.
Yeah.
So it wasn't because it was UPND. It was because of PF. You know what they were doing wrong.
So it was a coincidence of interest.
It was a coincidence of interest. But I also genuinely believed in HH at the point at which I met him, and with the things he said, I believed in him. So up to now, I think HH is a good president. Yeah. I agree in a lot of these things. But there are some things I think he's just, what are you thinking? Yeah. So if he does something that I think, hey, I was boy, you
can't do this.
You can't do this. I will not say it any less than I would have said it if it was Edgar Lungu in office. And I think that comes from childhood,
the training.
The training. But I said that there's two sides to it. Okay. So while even as a child I had very strong opinions, I had a very, I think, overdeveloped sense of justice. The pain when someone was treated unfairly or wrongly was real.
You felt it personally.
I felt it personally, and that has remained in my whole life. At the same time, I was a very meek child person. I was bullied at school. I was bullied. I used to get bullied. I don't quarrel. I've never quarreled. So I write stuff, but even then I don't mean it to quarrel. I know it comes across like I'm being mean or I'm being nasty. But in my private life, I'm very soft. I'm a walkover. So the people who know me only privately would find it very difficult to recognize me in my
and reconcile with the public figure that
those who know me in my public figure would find it very difficult to recognize me in my private figure. That's what I say, that the two, I don't think the two like each other. I don't think the two sides of me. Because I think my public figure thinks this one is a wimp. And I think this one thinks, like,
it's too loud.
Exactly. But both are real because I don't think I ever say something I don't believe. I don't ever say something for benefit or in order to bring someone down. So, for example, I'll say something about PF. It's not because I'm trying to bring them down, although I do genuinely think that PF should disappear. It should not come back to office. It's just, they did their bit, they messed us up, they should go. But I will not say something in order for that to happen, if you see what I mean. At the same time, if the PF is being treated unjustly, it is unjust. It doesn't matter that I think, I don't like their guts, but I will say it. In the same way with UPND or the president, when I defend them or when I say something, I genuinely believe it. I'm not saying I'm right. That's different. I could be wrong, but I genuinely believe the things that I say. And I think for me, Zambia comes first.
In fact, then we come to that.
Yes.
I think you've told us your profile.
Yes.
And I think our viewers have now understood what makes Laura Miti, and thanks for giving us a window to the private Laura Miti too.
Okay.
And I'm glad that you read and you read widely. I respect that, because reading, which sadly is being lost now, is very, very important, I think, for thinking and analyzing skills, and that you do very well. The love you have for our country, I think, can be seen. You're very passionate about our country. You have ideas of how it can be made better. you've ideas of the mistakes we make, you've ideas of where we should go. Your reflections about our country. Let's start with Dr. Kaunda.
I think Kaunda was sincere, but sometimes he was sincerely wrong. Okay, so I think he did the best that he could. For example, he understood that he needed to build the human capital. Okay, so he invested a lot in people. So he invested a lot in my generation, for example. So I went to school for free from grade 1 all the way.
Yeah.
Okay. Driven to school, we were given chocolate milk at break. If you went to the fancy school, those who went to the other schools were given skimmed milk, I think. But and a bun, we got chocolate milk and milk biscuits, and equal, but hey. So, so I think he really believed in investing in the human capital. He believed in liberation of the region. That was not a lie. He was charismatic. He was a great human being. He then, unfortunately, sincerely began to believe that he was Zambia, that Zambia could not do without him. He was vicious against his rivals, which was what was wrong. So, for example, in believing that he was so great, he did not allow leadership to rise. And which is why we ended up with Chiluba, for example. He had killed every other site of leadership except the trade unions, where President Chiluba was sheltering. Yes, he really could be vicious. I mean, I told you my uncle was general manager of Zesco. There's a time he fired, I think it was 30 young general managers, no reason. He gave no reason. And then after firing them, I know what happened to my uncle, because he began to follow. He wanted them to come back and kneel and say sorry. So he would pursue you. I think my uncle was supposed, first of all, to go and get a job in Botswana. He couldn't get it because it was blocked. And then also, my aunt was running the very first Shima place, actually, I think, in this country. These red brick structures that we have all over town?
Yes.
She had one of it, South End there. No, North End. She was selling Shima, whatever, it was sustaining the family. And then suddenly, the rent was hiked. I know it was 10 times the owner of the place. Or I don't know who she was paying to, because those things were cancelled. I can't remember. And then they said someone else was going to pay that amount. She left, and nobody ever went in. So he would rather you starved. He followed his rivals or people who had somehow
ruined their lives.
Foul of them, he ruined their lives. So my uncle left and went to South Africa. So in that way, but I think in setting the foundations of the country, in the liberation, in that kind of thing, I think he was a great president.
On unity?
On unity too. He was deliberate. He was intentional, like you said, about unity. Very intentional. So send people to different parts of the country, allow languages to be spoken. Although I think he did leave behind the Northwestern province.
You have a feeling that...
No, I don't even have a feeling. It's true. The Northwestern and Western provinces, if you think about it, maybe it's because they were not on the line of rail. No, but the Eastern province is not. And the Eastern province did not lag behind the way that Northwestern... And I think that's how we got to Mushala. Because I think Mushala's anger was genuine, kind of thing. So I don't know what was going on about that. But he did try, for example, tribal balancing in positions.
To our dear viewers, Adamson Mushala was the only non-rebel leader in this country. He raised a rebellion against Dr. Kaunda, and he would cause military attacks and insurrection from Northwestern province. Because you are carrying along our young viewers, so we have to...
Yes, but, like tribal balancing, he'd ensure that the Secretary General would be one tribe, the Prime Minister, another tribe. Everybody was in his cabinet. That we didn't know tribe. I grew up never wondering what tribe someone was. You know, like when you met them, Emmanuel Mwamba, yes, obviously it's the Bemba. But if it was a name, you know, there's some names in this country that you won't know.
Yeah,
you know,
you never bothered to ask.
You never
that
bothered.
Where you from?
No, you know, at Roma Girls, some people I discovered their tribe, some girls, after we finished, oh, by the way, you know, oh, you are Tonga, oh, you are Bemba, you know, kind of thing. So I think he did a very good job in unity, but his greatest legacy is liberating
Southern Africa.
I remember at the last, was it Counter talk where Thabo Mbeki came? I sat there mesmerized. You know, we don't know the half.
Yeah.
We don't know the half of what we did as a country, but what our president did. So that's what I think about Counter.
No, on KK, a testimony when I went to South Africa, even me, especially after working for Dr. Chiluba and just looking at the evils of Kaunda, I didn't know the expansive and sway of influence that Dr. Kaunda had. There are many doors that were opened for me because I come from Zambia, because I remember Dr. Kaunda. Yeah. So it was even at the African Union. Yeah, so that I also remember very well. Dr. Chiluba?
I think Chiluba was the first of our, is it incidental presidents, who just happened. I don't know whether he was the best we should have had, given that crop. Probably Winner would have done better. Who was else there? There was Nina, there was Mulemba.
And all the generals.
The generals, my general, my generals will pass power. But, you know. So I think Chiluba, I mean, you know, the aggressive privatization was not smart.
Yeah.
But credit to him, he did lead us out of the one-party state. I think he was somehow, he had an inferiority complex. I don't know whether it was his height, which caused him to do some things that, you know, I think he needed a sense of worship, President Chiluba. And then what he did with the Constitution to bar Kaunda from standing was the first of our major problems constitutionally. He shouldn't have done that. He shouldn't have made President Kaunda stateless and those kind of things. But ultimately, when the country stood up against his third term, he handed over. He yielded. That of all our, I think all our presidents, you know, we understood it. We do not seem to understand how easy it is for a president not to hand over power, you know. Yeah. So that I give him credit for. But I think our economy would have been in a better state. I also think, of course, he was the first of the major, should I say, allowers of grand-scale corruption, you know, where you have people who want money for money's own sake. So, you know, all that overdressing and stuff like that, I think was not really right for him. So it was okay, but it was the beginning of our slide down.
Do you have an opinion on our this international organization? Because towards the end of Kaunda's government, we see IMF and KK pulling out, then going back. Then Chiluba comes in as president and he
embraces it.
He embraces it and full throttle. We go into that privatization. Do you have an opinion about the role of these international organizations? I
think that IMF was very destructive. Because I think the IMF really has reformed. A lot has changed.
Okay.
You know, for example, some of the things, you know, the conditionalities there were brutal.
Yeah.
And I think the IMF kind of learned a lesson. So the IMF destroyed us. You can't come to a country and say, sell everything, you know, kind of
by
thing.
This deadline.
By this day, user fees, you name it, you know. I don't think he was a very astute economist.
Yeah.
So he enjoyed the accolades, you know, the whole Zambia is doing very well and that kind of thing. And as a result, took us down a path I think that was very difficult to come back from. And then, of course, in terms of, I think he rigged the election for Mwanawasa.
Or in 2001.
Yes.
That brings us to Mwanawasa.
So President Mwanawasa, I think, of course, I don't think he won the first election because at that time, as you remember, President Chiluba had just come out of the third term. There's no way. People were upset. So I don't think they voted for him. I think Mazoka won that election. As a result, we had a very difficult first term with Mwanawasa. He was the most insecure president other than Lungu first term. I think Lungu, both his terms, was kind of insecure. But Mwanawasa was terribly insecure in the first term. So he spent so much time to bolster himself. Remember, he's the one who taught the country some very, should I say, detrimental political actions. He's the one who taught the country to appoint members from the opposition. Yeah. Without his astute legal brain, nobody had thought about that. You know that we used to read that provision
we thought the opposition belonged to the opposition.
But we thought it said, it said the spirit of that provision is that ministers will be
come from parliament.
From the ruling party. I think that's the spirit.
Yeah,
but the way it was written...
just says ministers will come from parliament.
Our constitution with its lacunas. So I think that's what happened. And so he was smart enough. He was a lawyer. So he read the letter of the law rather than the spirit of the law. I could never forgive him for appointing Deepak. And I could never forgive Deepak himself. I really loved Deepak in the opposition. And remember when Mwanawasa came to power, we had the strongest parliament we ever had.
Yes.
People, it had people who could, what could I say, debate. This is the first time the budget was almost rejected. But because President Mwanawasa did not have a constituency in MMD, and again, going back to President Chiluba, he harmed this country by making Mwanawasa insecure. Had Chiluba just retired,
allowed the process to be competitive.
Yes, and no. Okay, let him put his Mwanawasa. Okay. Let's allow him.
Before that.
But before that, but after that, he should not have then made Mwanawasa insecure because he tried to be a puppet master. You see. Which is what Mwanawasa did not want. But then Mwanawasa did not have a constituency. He was just essentially a president without a party. So he spent the whole first term
5 years
trying to win the party of Chiluba, trying to weaken Chiluba and all that kind of thing, even his thing against corruption. You don't know to what extent it was fully for the country and how it was for against Chiluba. So that first term was horrible. And I remember, I was in civil society then, so I'm very much aware of what was happening. We had so many meetings with him at State House. To be fair...
Oh, he granted you meetings?
Oh, yeah, we had many meetings.
In
State House with him. And I remember once where we went, and I think he was very shocked to see me. He was shocked. It's not even anything, because later on... years later, actually, I met Mrs. Mwanawasa, and she said to me that day, he came from the meeting and he said, Laura Miti, nikamwana.
Not this larger-than-life figure you see.
And I was thin. I was super thin.
Yeah.
I was in my 20s. I was young. And he couldn't believe I was the one giving him all this.
All these troubles.
All these troubles, yes.
Yeah.
But he used to allow us to come to the meeting. And I remember in that meeting, he was telling us to trust him on the Constitution. Mwanawasa is the one who gave us the problem with the Constitution. He did all that thing all the way to NCC, but every step was a battle with us.
Yeah, was fractious.
Always his forum. He did not want to change the Constitution, but he would slowly, go make these concessions just to move it. And that's how we ended up creating that very expensive NCC, which almost fractured PF, he was that NCC was exactly like the dialogue forum under Bill 10. Under Bill 10,
which we'll come to discuss.
What you are doing really is you're pretending it's for unity, but what you want really is to get your way.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's what he did with
the constitution
making process. And for me, that is one thing I find it difficult to forgive him for. Had Mwanawasa allowed a constitution to pass, we would never have had SATA. And we had not had SATA, the rest is history. Okay? So he then doesn't allow us to have a constitution. But I was going to tell you about the meeting we had at State House. So I'm sitting there and he's telling us to trust him. So I don't know what I said. I said something. I put up my hand and I said, "No, we need to have this constitution." And I said, "I will." Then he said, "You don't trust me, Laura?" And I said, "No, I don't trust you, Mr. President."
Yeah.
And the big banner next day was, "I don't trust you," Laura says to Levy kind of thing. But to be fair, he received the letters we wrote. We would get a response, and he respected you. When you sat across from him, he treated you like an intelligent human being.
Yeah. Like a stakeholder.
Like a stakeholder, Then his second term, he was amazing, because then he had nothing to fear.
Yeah.
You know? So we had our jubilee, the debt was no longer was cancelled. And I remember the last article I wrote about Mwanawasa. He was out of the country. I can't even remember. I think it was the UK or something. And I remember watching him. And I remember that last article was like, I can't believe what a president we have now. That was the very last article I wrote.
You praised him.
I praised him. I was
after railing against him.
I was really proud of him. And it's one of the things God does. Without wanting, this will sound controversial, but I think Sata's death was a gift to the country. Mwanawasa's death was really harmed the country. Because if Mwanawasa had finished his term, and as well as he was doing in his second term, putting things in place, he had a wonderful cabinet, you'd have handed over to someone that would have taken the country forward. Oh, there's another big problem with Mwanawasa. He was a tribalist. Yeah. Mwanawasa was, he was a dyed in the wool. No, he wasn't even a tribalist. He was a nepotist. Yeah. So Mwanawasa, I don't know whether it was his insecurity. He wanted his own people around him. So ministers, I remember Mapushi. Like if you checked,
all of them were related to him.
It was almost like he went to the village and says,
"Come and help me.
Come." You
remember the family tree.
The family tree. No, his level of tribalism was shocking. But the difference between his tribalism and Edgar Lungu's tribalism, for example, was that he was a tribalist inward. He wanted to help his people, but he did not hate anyone. And that's a very big difference. Like you didn't feel hated as Ngoni or Tonga or whatever. And he would give you your spaces, but you got this, it was the period of Kulibone Shata, the Lambas and the Solis were on top of, did we even know there were Lambas before then? Suddenly, with Kulibone Shata, you name it. But the difference was there was no hatred of anyone else, but he was a terrible, terrible nepotist. Him and his wife, together, filled so many positions. He then, of course, unfortunately dies. And of course, he puts a vice president, like they all do, who he thinks cannot be president. Cannot be president. That's how he brings Rupiah Banda from the bush there, from the farm. He brings him in and makes him vice president. And of course, he becomes president. So we move on from him to Rupiah. Now, with Rupiah Banda, if you remember, the space between Mwanawasa and Rupiah, that's a time when we saw the worst of Fred Membe. So Fred Membe believed, rightly or wrongly, whether they're telling us the truth or no, we never know, that President Mwanawasa had wanted Mangande,
the Minister of
Finance, to be president. But the way Fred Membe went at it was as though we were part of the Mwanawasa's estate. So Mwanawasa wanakambati, he shared. So mpase he shared. That's not how it works. We are a country.
We're a country, yes.
So he began to viciously attack Rupiah Banda. I couldn't believe the things the whole Nyamasoya. Like he wasn't attacking his politics, he was attacking the man. One. Secondly, he wasn't attacking for anything other than that he was standing. Like he was saying to him, you must not stand because President Mwanawasa said he wanted Mangande. Wow.
You can't be with a country like it's a monarchy.
Not only that, President Banda, Yanunkira, President Irek, it doesn't work like that. He's going to get it. Most people
Now,
would.
many people will not understand. You've criticized Fred Membe in various articles. Many people would not understand. In fact, your profile rises because of your column in the Post. Did you have these uncomfortable conversations with Fred where you'd say, Fred, I know it's not my area, but in the manner you're running the front page, it's harmful to our country. Did you have those discussions?
Okay, so I'm trying not to say anything that I know because, so, I hate to ever know something that you know because you're inside, okay?
Yeah.
So, Fred was a friend.
Yeah.
Very good friend of mine and very good friend of my ex-husband. So in that way, yes, we would talk, but when I was writing in the
Post as a
columnist, I think for a while he would let me even go against what was going on in the paper. But I became most worried, I think, especially after President Mwanawasa died and he was viciously attacking Rupiah. My guess is, and now this is conjecture, okay? I'm not saying this as fact. This is what I believe happened. Fred Membe, Ngandumangade, and Maureen Mwanawasa were in one
camp.
I don't know whether the idea was that Mangande would make Maureen Mwanawasa vice president. But Maureen Mwanawasa wanted to be president. That was quite clear. So, remember they took the body
around the
country. And I criticized that. I said, it's uncultural.
Yeah.
You can't have someone viewed 10 times. Why are we doing this? And then I also criticized the widow. For going around, because I thought, okay, maybe the widow should have been sitting in Lusaka. So I thought that was really wrong and it felt very political. That's one article. And then before that, that's the article that got me thrown out of the Post, the one I criticized Maureen.
And ferrying the body around the country.
Yes, and my sense was together, they said, this one is not going to help us get what we want, okay? But then also before that, I had written an article about Rupiah Banda that criticized the man's politics. Yeah. You can't attack him for standing. Standing is a right. Yeah. So you can't attack anyone because they've decided they're going to put their hands up. And if this is an easy run, then it's an easy run. I personally wanted Mangande.
Yeah.
I think that Mangande is a president that we lost.
We never had.
He's the president we never had. So I really wanted Mangande. But I thought it was unjust to attack Rupiah Banda. So again, my sense of justice kicked in. So I wrote that article, and up to now, I think that because Rupiah insulted the MD and told them, essentially they were imbeciles for even considering Rupiah. I think that's why the Central Committee voted for Rupiah. Had he left them alone, you people get insulted. Like, who do you think you are? And I think that's why they went for Rupiah. They probably would have gone for Mangande because Mangande was a better candidate than Rupiah. But anyway, Rupiah goes into office, and I think Fred says to himself, Kaleza was at your one. So he spends the entire 3 years attacking the man. I don't think that Rupiah really understood how effective Fred was being. So he allowed, for example, President Sata to go around and have his rallies and all. Where I think that Fred Membe was very dishonest, and why I do not trust Fred to this day, is exactly what he did to Rupiah he had done to Sata. Do you remember?
Before that, yeah.
He used to call him names. He used to attack him. He hated him. The only reason that he then decided to
Support him.
sanitize because he's the one who had murdered him,
Yeah.
and then he then took him and bathed him himself. The reason was because he's the only person he thought could
defeat
Rupiah, who he hated. And he hated Rupiah because he had dared go against him. Now, for me, I think that kind of sense that if someone goes against you, you're going to hate them. I find it very problematic, So that is my problem with Fred.
Okay.
That.
Thanks for the background. It now helps a lot of people that have just been wondering, because they see you rise on the platform of the Post, and then you have these hard tweets against Fred Membe, and they do not understand. I think the background you've given is sufficient.
So, exactly. So that's what I. So I get thrown off the Post, and ceremoniously they just stopped publishing my thing. I was not told.
Oh, you would send in your weekly.
and that was it. Yeah. Never. To this day, I don't know. Even there has been no official
cut-off or a letter that they are no longer our columnists.
Okay. So then, of course, President.
So what was your take of Rupiah Banda?
Rupiah Banda was kind of a better corrupt person than the PF kind of corruption. So, as a person, wonderful. Big, soft heart. And I remember, I knew Rupiah from Parliament even. And he said, kind of thing, So when I was at Parliament again, very young, he was just a beautiful, beautiful soul, person to person. As president, I think half the time he was probably drinking. But where he was good was in putting the right people
in
positions. One. And also, he knew which departments not to mess with. Bank of Zambia, Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Commerce. These three.
He let them run independently.
And he got the best that he could possibly get, the best individuals to run those. And he believed in the economy. So under him, the economy really thrived.
Yeah.
But his kind of corruption was too in people's faces, which was his children, okay? He pushed his children forward and that kind of thing. I think, though, where I think his corruption was smarter, or should I say better for the country, is that he tended to skim the top. Like you could not put a finger on where he has stolen. I think he was the kind of person who was, he wrote in 10 million. No, but where? They only pay 5 million. You know what I mean? But the road will get its 10, will get its full 10 million. But PF, he wrote in 10 million. Well, only pay 5 million. But need 14. Okay, so in 14 billion, the road will only get 1 million, which is a different kind of corruption.
Okay.
And I think Rupiah Banda's corruption was the kind where, I think people are going to be corrupt.
Why did he lose the election? It's such a contradiction. His economy was doing well. We had foreign reserves of $4.5 billion.
People didn't know. And Zambians had become spoiled. We had begun to we thought the economy will always be fine. You didn't even know that the economy is actually run until PF showed us how you can misrun an economy. We didn't know. We didn't know that running an economy. You know how it is even at home when there's always food on the table?
You think it's normal?
Children actually do not know what it takes their parents to do it. Until they move somewhere, maybe their parents die. They realize that can't you getting shoes when your shoes, like your shoes damaged, and the next shoe comes, it just doesn't fall from heaven. Okay, so I think that's what happened to us. We really believed that we had stopped. Remember we had stopped. We had removed Kaunda.
Yeah.
We had stopped Chiluba. Manawasa had died. What's the worst that can happen to us? We can put whoever we want and Tizamchosa. So we were very proud of ourselves, very confident in our democracy and that kind of thing. And I think that's the only reason we could have voted for someone like Sata.
So Michael Sata comes beat Rupiah Banda. I think Rupiah Banda loses because MMD has been there for 20 years. I think there's fatigue. And also, like you said, the corruption that was being reported about his children, I think, affected, especially the voters, where PF had support already, because by 2006, they were commanding the Copper Belt and Lusaka already, and parts of the northern security. So it was just easier for Michael Sata to then come and get some cream and win that election. Michael Sata.
Michael Sata was a thug. All due respect. He believed in violence as a legitimate tool for politics. We saw that. You know, he was the first person that showed us violence. As a result, he built a violent, lawless party. You know, like he was eccentric, Michael Sata. He was, and I think he too was a good guy. You know, at the heart was a good guy. Another guy who was my friend, you know. But at heart, I think he was a good person, but very lawless in his private life, you know, women, children, you name it, very lawless. Also very lawless as a leader. But I think where he was different, for example, from President Lungu, was that he was strong. He was in control. So his thuggery was one he could control. So he could say to cadres, go. You know, in the Bible, there's that verse that says, I'm a leader. I said to this one, go, and he goes. I said to this one, stop, and he stops. You okay? That was Michael Sata. He could say to the thugs, beat this one, but I'm some pie, they won't kill him. You know what I mean? Or he could say, go, no more. You know, like when he said, you will not go on the streets when he lost in
2006.
They did not go on the streets. And that was his great point. Because while he was all these things, he was in control. He was running EF. He was running the country. But remember, he could do things that were unconstitutional. And I think had Sata been healthy, he'd still be president. That one was going to change the constitution.
You think so?
Yes, you know, because he, you know, like his strength was such that it was going to be very difficult to take him out of office. He only had 3 years. I don't think we ever saw a Sata presidency. He was unwell. And that's sad. I think had he been well, there are some things that would have worked well. You know, he genuinely believed in the infrastructure. You know, he wasn't making it up. He believed this long before, you know, the whole ring road stuff thing. He had thought it through. He believed in his rogue of a party, PF, no constitution, no membership thing. I mean, like, who runs a party? All of you who say you're PF, I don't even know how you're PF, you know, because
there are no cards.
No cards, you know, and all that kind of thing. So, and then, of course, family tree. Family forest. He was the forester. The tree was Bonawasa. The forest was Sata. He also was extremely tribal. Extremely tribal. Some of the people who even I personally knew, who ended up in offices, like, how? This person has nothing to bring to this table. So he appointed friends, children of friends, old people, as long as they were his friends. That, I think, was a big problem. But he too was not really a hater of anyone. He was a believer in the Bembas, but I don't think he was really a hater of anybody. But like I say, my heart broke for him because I sometimes imagine that he almost said to his body, "When we want, you know that Tonga song, you know, like it's sad. He had fought for this for so long, and then just I think when he was entering, he was already
the soul was willing, but the body couldn't.
Yes, so people beside, and as a result, people knew those in the inner circle knew this guy didn't have long to live. So his whole presidency was PF people jostling when he went down, when he died, Fred himself, you know, you could tell that there were all these factions and they were just waiting for
the king to die.
For the king to die, yes. And so, like I say, I don't think we had we really knew what kind of president it would have been if he was healthy, but violence and lawlessness that PF is even now. He actually deliberately created. That's what he believed. He believed that you can use violence, you can do this, but you can control it, you know, kind of thing. He controlled any pressure cooker, you know, kind of control. You know, kind of thing. But he had authority, the kind of authority that his successor did not have. And I think that was the biggest problem that President Lungu had. President Lungu, again, you wonder, had he taken over from Arabi, for example, what kind of president would he have been?
Yeah.
But he was taking over a party that was so thuggish. He was put in office by people who wanted to control him. And like Mwanawasa, he failed to resist. He failed to refuse that control. So his presidency was a 7-year unmitigated disaster, is my sense. Largely because he could not control the party, I think.
Okay.
So President Lungu was presiding over people that did not respect him. Why do
you say that?
You could get the sense. I mean, like, you are very good. You are a spin doctor. You know. But even you knew when you're spinning President Lungu that you were lying. So
let me. I don't defend myself.
No, let's move. Let's move
but
on.
Let me just say, because you wrote an article,
yes,
where you said Emmanuel Mwamba as a spin doctor is very smart. He took this humility. You were attacking ECL's humility as false humility. You know why the 2015 campaign was based on his humility? Like you were saying, when you meet, I don't know if you've met Edgar Lungu in person. That's the first thing you notice about him. He will open a door for you. He will save you water. He will walk with you to the car. He will listen to you. The humility, whether politicians call it false outside, but it's the first thing you meet in that bar. So for me, I saw that as his biggest quality in 2014.
But who wants humility? The truth is, in a president, whether he's humble or not is not important. Whether he's handsome or not is not important. Whether he's nice or not is not important. You want a president who is lawful, who is competent, because, we don't, like you say, is he ever going to save us water?
Yeah.
No. You see, he can't save 20 million Zambians water. So that's not a good thing. But what I'm saying, though, let's go back to the point, is that you got the sense that nobody really... Stephen Kampiongo thought he was a president. Each commander in the...
Defense forces?
No, our army, no.
The commanders, the party cadres.
Yes, Each commander was a president. The youth leader, what was the last youth...
Kelvin Sampa? Or...
No, before him. The one was more well-known.
What was...
was he not your leader? What's his name? Yes.
Okay, we'll go along. We'll remember.
Yes. Thought he was a president. So many people were lining up to try and take over. I think the only person.
You are saying you in the PF you felt that exercising presidential powers.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. Too many people. There are things that happened that I think President Lungu probably didn't know.
Yeah, true. That happens to all presidents.
No, but there are certain things people should be scared to do.
Yeah.
Because if the president hears, your head is on the block. President Lungu, people could have died. People have been killed without him knowing. It should never happen. A proper dictator should know who has been killed. In his name.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
President Lungu, it came to a point where, like I say, instructions were being given. If when we were getting arrested, I don't even know that President Lungu knew. You know that kind of thing. He probably found out later on.
Yeah.
And then this thing has blown up.
I remember you staged a protest at Parliament where the 6 of you were arrested with one of your activists and friends and me saw arrest in the 10 of PC. I will remember that in 2018.
Yes. Stuff like that. There was no reason for that. It made, and I think the beginning of the end for Lungu was 42.
That campaign you raised.
But that was going nowhere had he not arrested us. Do you know that?
Yeah.
It was just going to end up in a parliament. People making noise. The crowd was so small because people were scared.
Yeah.
It was the fact that we were arrested that blew it up. So when it comes to President Lungu, these are the things that I found a problem with him. That he is a nice person, I believe.
Yeah.
I think he comes across as someone, people say you hate him. President Lungu is that uncle you can't hate.
Yeah.
You might find him irritating, you might find him this, but you can't hate. But extremely incompetent. Like, he could not run the country. Okay? So, like we saw just now when you asked him about debt, he was unable to speak to anything technical. When President Lungu came into office, initially, I didn't know him.
Yeah.
Okay? So I gave him a thing of the doubt, benefit of the doubt, the first few weeks.
Yeah.
I just thought, well, I mean, I didn't like winter, so I just don't go with
with
yeah. So I mean, like, as in, I didn't like winter's politics. I liked the guy, very charismatic, but in terms of his politics,
what scares you about people like Winter?
Winter will be a dictator. Winter used to close shops when he's, like the way he would become super president when he acted was scary. The people who you can tell they wear their power too closely to them.
Yeah.
But Winter is a smart guy, and we've had really extremely intelligent conversations. But most of the people I criticize,
yeah, of course,
my friends in the thing.
Yeah.
I think people wonder, they find me sitting having coffee with someone like, this is my mate, But yes, I was saying that when the President Lungu first came on the scene, I thought he'd be okay. Two things made me write him off. One was Sata's funeral. That fake wail he gave. That when he cried.
He cried genuinely.
No.
You thought it was made up.
And I was sitting there like, how can an adult man do this? So at that point, I just thought, if you can fake wail, you're fake. So that one for me really bothered me. Next, he was interviewed by Luchi.
Yeah.
And he was asked, what is your plan for University of Zambia, I think? And his answer was, not my problem. I'll have ministers. Well, kind of thing. You can't say it's not your problem. So all his interviews, and after that, they stopped him getting interviewed. You could tell. So until President Lungu finished his term, if he wasn't reading a script, I do not know even to this day, I do not know what he thinks about education. I don't know what he thinks about the mines. I don't know what he thinks about rule of law. I don't know what he thinks about anything.
Yeah.
He just was technically very weak. But if he had done what Rupiah had done, you are technically weak, but you gather around you the best possible minds, okay? And then control your cadres. You'd still be president right now. So you don't have to be massively competent yourself. You just need to get the right people around you who actually respect you.
Yeah.
So with President Lungu, I think that President Lungu's presidency was an unmitigated disaster. Let me tell you the reason. It is because he destroyed two things. In fact, the one thing that he destroyed that nobody has the right to is the psyche of the people. As a people now, we are more crooked than we were before PF came to power. We're just crooked. We are corrupt. We have a generation of young people who genuinely believe that you can't get a job unless you know someone. But not because of unemployment, but the whole thing of giving jobs to cadres and that kind of thing. But even worse, between President Lungu and the Papas, they convinced Zambians that it is both to just happen. To
be created.
Yes, that I can be sitting here today, tomorrow you see me with a Jaguar and 3 houses, and it's okay. Thank God. That kind of thing. So it is going to take us a long time to undo that damage. And that is, nobody has the right to do that thing. And then, of course, there was the politics, the whole Bhutan, and just his...
speak briefly about Bhutan before we go to President Hakainde Hichilema. You became the leading voice on Bhutan. One of the people that was an architect and pushed the idea, Jackson Slavo, was here just the other day. And he spoke to the sincerity of the work that they were doing. They invited the opposition to Siavonga. In fact, the first paper to push for what now became Dialogue, then became Bhutan, was written by the current Minister of Justice and his other colleagues from UPND. Where did you see the danger? Why did you think it would benefit President Lungu?
First of all, even before Bhutan came, remember that there was that audio in which former Justice Minister, Given Luwinda, was talking about getting rid of opposition leaders from parliament so that they can pass the constitution. You knew that PF, President Lungu was scared of a fair election. I don't know why, but President Lungu comes across to be like he doesn't believe in fair elections. Like he's one of those people who, even if you tell him you're going to win, like love potion. Those women where even if their husband is good, he's loyal. So that's how President Lungu comes across. Like he just doesn't believe in straight. But with Bill 10, you could see from far that this thing, dialogue, refuse dialogue, then create this dialogue. You don't produce a report. You just say, they've said, we've agreed to this thing. Then Bill 10 itself comes out. Bill 10, when it came out at night. It was published at night. I sat up to read it.
Yeah.
Objective mind. Even if I don't believe, I tend to go to things with an objective mind. So like I did with the ATI, for example. I went to the ATA with an objective mind, kind of thinking, can they really give us a good one? But let's see. So we go to the Bill 10. I questioned myself, is it because I'm not a lawyer? Because this thing is problematic. I couldn't sleep that night. I did not believe people could put so much evil into a document. So, Bill 10 was written. There were fundamental clauses that were so undemocratic. I could not believe that they were going to be put in. And it was very clear to me that I don't know whether President Lungu told Given to do it or Given chose himself to do it. But that document he produced was shocking. So I'll give you a few examples. One of the first things that struck me was the issue of Parliament.
Yeah.
So Parliament is a creature of the Constitution, isn't it? It is meant to be fully created by the Constitution.
Yeah.
Bill 10 removed the power of the Constitution to create Parliament. It says there will be a Parliament, essentially, which will be decided by subsidiary law. Subsidiary law is passed by Parliament. So essentially, you are telling Parliament to create itself. It's God telling you that, Laura, how do you want to look? What I be standing? You know what I mean? Kind of thing. Obviously. So when you look at that clause, it was going to pass before elections. Parliament had the right to increase numbers as it wanted.
Oh, I see. You thought when this passes, then Parliament was going to have leeway and freedom then to change and amend whatever they could.
It could. Essentially, if you say it be subsidiary law, it could go from 156 to 300 and make the next 100 all in the eastern and northern province. Just that was enough to make the election academic.
Yeah.
You see?
Yeah.
And then, if you could decide how by-elections will be held, essentially you are saying Parliament should create itself. Then there was the collision clause. The collision clause that says the winner who doesn't get 50 plus 1 can make a collision with any other party that stood. What that means is that PF did not need to rig for itself. It would rig for a small party. Okay? So it was obvious PF was going to get...
If, for example, they get 45.
Yes.
Then they'll get someone who has done 10% or
exactly.
6%.
So what they'll do is they get 45 deliberately. Then rig for some no-name at the back there and give them 80%. Very clever.
So there were clauses that alarmed you.
Yes. So overall, like I said to people, and then they start saying to us, it's about the disabled. Really insulting to the disabled. Because that's what the PF kept saying. It's for the disabled, for women, for inclusion. It was not about inclusion. And that was, I think, very, should I say, malicious, using poor people to push that.
Now, this is a time I wanted to discuss Twitter. Because at this stage, you're not using mainstream media. You're not a columnist in the Post. You resorted to Twitter to raise this lobby. How did you do that? And how did you recognize that social media was such a powerful tool?
You know that it was not even a plan. I went onto social media when I was thrown off the post. Kudala.
Okay. You said I need to speak.
So, that was on social media, even before. So, when I began to write on social media, I did not go there wanting to influence anyone. I just used to share my opinions with my small group. Do you know that it took me many years to understand how far my writings went?
Yeah.
I didn't even know. Because I have 500 friends on Facebook. Okay?
And sometimes when you post a very controversial item, maybe there'll just be 10 comments.
Yes.
And you think that's it.
Exactly. You see, so I would write, and the few people who write with me, then people tell me, I saw your thing in the paper. I saw you. Where? I do not write for these people. And, you know, it's like now, people say, you've gone quiet. No. I post 4 times a day. I've never reduced
your postings.
My postings. It's that not as many people, maybe papers, pick up what I'm writing anymore. And because the tensions have reduced, if you see what I mean. But so that's what happened. You know, so I write. I was quite shocked at the extent to which people began to recognize me on the street and talk about me. And now remember, I'm a very actually private person. So when I'm writing on social media, even to this day, which is why sometimes I write some really crazy things. Yeah. That's the real me writing. So, you know, I can sit there, I can write about sex, I can write about something, because in my head, it's just my opinions. I've always had opinions, and sometimes opinions make me laugh. You know, and then I write it. Yeah. I have never, ever gone anywhere saying, let me write this and
influence others.
Okay? But things overtook me. And before I knew it, you know, I'd get calls from the media, I'd get this. And sometimes people even conflating my work with the work of the organization that I work for. They didn't know how to separate it. Maybe I can talk about this influencer role. I think it is my least enjoyable. So people will be amazed to understand that I am a very extroverted introvert. Okay, so
conflicting.
Very conflicting. Left to myself, I don't like crowds. I don't have a lot of friends. I love solitude. I spend 99% of my time alone. I'll have one friend, which is why, for example, Bono's death affected me. Nobody will ever know the extent to which. One day, maybe, I'll talk about it. But so I've always had one friend in my life. You know, in high school, I had a friend called Audrey. She was my one friend. And then at primary school, I had a friend called Catherine. She was my one friend. When I was married, Azwa was my buddy. And then Bono became a very good friend. Yeah. And so, for example, when I lost him, the world, a hole under me opened. I do not need, Laura Miti, okay? This Laura Miti you talk about does not exist to me. Yeah. You know, like, I do not, I just get a shock.
When you retreat to yourself.
When I retreat to myself, even when I'm writing, you know, like, I don't write saying, like, anirembe. You know, like, anirembe, I'm very, and when I write this, it will go. Believe me, sometimes I don't even know which of my articles will get what response. The only thing that makes me write is my belief. I'm either upset, I'm amused, I'm irritated, I'm having fun, I'm just doing mungulu. You know, like, but I write essentially for me and a small group. That's how I started. Before I knew it, it was going. Twitter, Twitter, I've got 100 and something thousand followers. You know, when I travel, I get people say, I follow you. Sometimes an ambassador says, I follow you, you know? Then I sit and I say, okay, I was going to use a letter.
It's a conversation, you can use it.
Okay, so I say, shit. You know, and I think, this guy follows me.
Yeah.
What did I say last week?
What has impressed him or her?
Or even like, what did I say last week? You know, like, because when I write, I really write for my friends, and my friends get me. You know, my friends get my sense of humor. My friends, you know, like those who know me, I love to laugh, and I just have this brain that works a little bit alternate. You know, like okay, things go. I always see something extra to a story.
Yeah.
You know, so even in politics, you know, like everyone will be talking about this, but what will strike me is probably, you know, but President Lugu, how could you do this? Oh, the president, you know, that baritone is, you know, that's what will probably hit me. And then, of course, if it harms Zambia, you know, that one, there's no negotiation. If I think this harms my country, but especially the poor, for me, that one, there's no negotiation. So I will write about that. But even then, it feels like venting. It's less about a minister will respond or anybody will respond or the president will hear or no. It's getting it off my chest, like, how can you do this to kids? How can you do this to the poor? How can you do this to that? So it was totally unintentional. And if I could change something, I would go back to the days of the Post, where people saw the article, but they didn't know the writer. That's how it was those days. So they loved the article. So the article was a product, but I could walk in.
So there was no prejudice.
No, not only that. I could walk in the street and they didn't know who Laura Miti was. You know, so even like when I went to see the president, President Mwanawasa.
That's why he was surprised.
That's why he was shocked, because who he thought I was, he thought I was this big fat woman in my 60s, and I was 24, 25, I think, at the time. So that was good. I really wish it was possible for me to have an anonymous column in which people get my thoughts, but they don't extend them to me. Now I'll be in a mall and someone says, "Are you Laura Mitchell?" And I'm thinking, yeah, by the way, I am I. You know, and my grandkids, why do people greet you? You know, my family, my friends, they just believe me. I am as good as Mary Banda. You know, like I am just a human being. Ordinary.
Let's come to President Hakainde Hichilema. Your campaign against Bill 10, your campaign against Edgar Lungu, your postings and the various quotations did, to a large extent, help the cause of the UPND. Of course, there were many voices, but prominent amongst those are voices like yours, John Sangwa, Brebna Changala, Archbishop Telesfo Mpundu, and others, is in office. Give us your reflections.
I think President Hichilema is the best we could have now for the economy. I battle to imagine where we would be if PF had won, if Fred had won, if Calab had won, if you see what I mean, who we had. But even who we have, you know, when I look around, I don't see anybody as economically astute as President Hichilema.
But that now is a big contrast to the state of the economy. How do you reconcile that?
Because the state of the economy is better than it could have been.
Okay, justify.
Okay. We were given this. We were given this huge debt by the PF. You know, the country was laden by this huge debt. In order to pay that debt, in order to stop money leaking, you know, in order to stop money leaking from everywhere like PF, because PF money could be burnt. You actually used to burn it. You know, people used to burn it in bowlers. So part of the reason why people at the bottom felt like there was more money under PF is because so many people had millions of kwacha unjustifiably, which they just threw, okay? So if you had a bar under PF, you had a lot of money. If you were a builder under PF, so that money trickled, but it was very dirty, illegal money. You know, we also people, like I say, poor today, extremely rich tomorrow. The level of corruption was crazy. The debt that came was also just being distributed via private pockets, okay? That's not happening now. So in order for us to access the IMF, for example, we had to really streamline our fiscus. We have the best budget expenditure record that we've had For I don't know long. For so long, we as civil society used to talk about how the budget and the expenditure were not related. You know, what was appropriated by Parliament and what was spent.
Expended.
Yeah. Now, very close to each other. If you go onto the Ministry of Finance website, there is no question you won't get an answer to. I think people don't know. But it's amazing what Minister Musokotwane has done with the Ministry of Finance. Okay? So what I'm saying is, right now, in order for us to get out of the deep hole that the PF left, we have, unfortunately, to go through what we're going through. But despite all that, I find it amazing that we've got the free education. We've got meal allowances that PF began to act like we're impossible. We've employed
teachers and health workers.
So I think, and also it's a going concern. You see, it's a runner, maybe a bad runner, but a thing. Now, you know what I find amusing with Zambians complaining about the economy?
Yeah.
And the PF especially. The PF likes to tell us about, they left the kwacha at what? 20? Yeah?
The statistics from the...
Yeah.
Okay, so as of 2021, you have foreign reserves of $3 billion. You have fuel at 17 kwacha. You have meal at 120 kwacha. You have
kwacha?
The kwacha at 17 kwacha.
Okay. The PF loves to say that. What did the PF find?
As of 2011?
Yes.
Okay.
Kwacha at? 5 kwacha. Fuel at?
9 kwacha.
8 kwacha. Reserves
at 4.5 billion.
4.5 billion. Debt, zero.
At 2.1
2.1, but it's actually zero because debt's the thing. Do you understand? You know, and that's why I say that our education system has really failed us. It's simple math. The PF, you can't say that to your wife, no, I left you at, what should I say, 70, I left you at 45 or 70 kg. I'm very good. Nishi muntu nampeza pa 100 kg. You know what I mean. You know when I left you, look at this new husband that you have. You only eat chicken once a week. Me, when I left you, you were having chicken twice a week, and you had soya pieces kansako. Nishi muntu nampeza it was ezemuma pizza.
Yeah.
You see. Yeah. So PF, what we must compare them with is what they found. 5 to 17. Fuel.
Yeah.
PF destroyed the economy. So if HH and the UPND had taken over from RB, would be, I don't know where it would be. And it's that kind of hurts me, that I wish would had an HH presidency straight after RB when everything was there, and all he needed to change was to stop the runaway corruption. And I think the best thing about this particular president is that he does not come across as needing more money, every power, that kind of thing. The difference between him and any other president we've had, maybe other than Mwanawasa, is that all our presidents have needed to build a house. Imagine Showa.
Okay. Now, listen,
wait. Let me just finish with that. Every other president, it's not a small thing. Yeah. Every other president has needed to send their children to a better school. You see what I mean? Using presidential earnings. Under him, though, I always say, UPND na PF, first cousins.
Okay.
Chimos. But UPND kubaleka, bangapeche mga PF. It's at the top where there's a difference. President Lungu and HH night and day. In terms of their leadership style, their competence, their what? Night and day. You can't even compare. Here, you see, because because UPND spent 20 years in opposition. Years. Yes, but especially the last ones of PF, they spent it planning what they would do when they went into power. They also wanted to build houses. They also wanted to steal. So right now, I think it's almost like they're straining at the leash. Like they're being held back. But I have not seen anything that makes me believe that UPND as a party is better than PF as a party, other than cadres, of course. But even their cadres, if you let them go, what they really wanted was to go into the bus stops. What they really wanted was to kill Zambians and things. That's one thing. Let me tell you what I don't like about President HH.
Yeah.
His politics. Some of the politics is his thing. So, okay, they can tell us that they didn't miss PF, but come on. You know, I mean, again, conjecture. I have no proof.
Yeah.
But me, I believe that they had the hand in the mouse something. You know? Because, you know, so where did it get so organized? You know? So I think that they used machinations to get rid of their greatest threat. I think that another thing that I find, his appointments, some of his appointments, I think he is brilliant. The president does not make any, he's like Arabi. He does not make any mistake in his economic appointments. Minister of Finance,
Bank of
Zambia, TC, you know, and I think even to the cabinet, there,
below PS and below?
PS especially. I've been very unhappy with PS. You know, I really hope that this president would not jettison in people. You know, like I really hope that he would not use PS position as a reward. And he did. Okay, I understand obviously the pressure, because can you imagine the pressure?
Yeah.
You know, the pressure from, you know, all you people who campaign, you know, when you campaign, I will see it. You know, so when you're honest, you understand that the pressure on the president has to be hell. Because they remember this, remember that, some want their children and all. But I still think that this was our chance to have a very professional civil service, and maybe change it in such a way that even the next president finds it impossible to appoint political actors into the professional service. Some of the PSs he's appointed have no business being PSs, no business. I think Olokumuza Chabet do your controlling officer. Yeah, they can be played around by senior civil servants, you know. But also, controlling officer is the person that runs a ministry. They should understand the books, they must understand the economy, they must understand the constitution. So they have had a problem. I also think that, like I say,
women appointments, although you are not feminist.
You know, I have a problem with the women's movement here in Zambia. Because
speak to that.
We worry too much about appointments. You know, now appointments favor people like me.
Yeah.
I don't need affirmative action. I don't need to get a loan on the basis of affirmative action. Me, my friends, at my level. So Zambia is a very unequal country. The women at the top are 100 times more powerful than the men at the bottom. You know, a man at the bottom can't come and harass me. Yeah. This is not South Africa, where the guy at the filling station akufunda. You know, South African men. You know, when I just went there.
Yeah. I told got to go class.
No, but it's not even that, because
it's a very patriarchal society.
You don't even think about it as class, because here you know what kind of man is going to come after you. You know what I mean? It's not even. Then you go there and you find, you know, here we are very stratified, and we are more about class than we are about the patriarchy. So a man, my driver, will not disrespect me because he's a man. My person who works my garden will not disrespect me because he's a man. Okay? So which means that if I'm a woman and I've become powerful, I am powerful. Okay? And do not give me favors ahead of a lower class man. It is wrong. Okay? Because a man in the village who's unable to feed his children should get that loan ahead of me.
Okay.
should get that CDF loan ahead of me. So when it comes to appointment of women, it would favor
the
powerful women. Yes, it would look good. And the problem is, if he made a 50-50 cabinet, Nazi, you see, women keep quiet, will celebrate, will start getting accolades, will start getting awards. Will he have solved the problem? No. The biggest problem with women in this country is poverty. When did you last hear the women's movement talk about how many hours Zambian women take to fetch water, the poor?
Yeah.
When did you last hear? They don't talk about it. It's
They
not
talk
their
about
problem.
appointments.
It's not their problem. When did you last hear about the endemic issue of rape, child rape?
Yeah.
We don't talk about it because it's not our children getting raped. You know, the numbers, and this is something maybe out of everything. If the country forgets everything, and if anybody in power is listening to me here, child rape. Children are being
as defilement as it is called.
Defilement is. I don't like the word defilement. It's a sanitized word. What is defilement? We are actually defile. It sounds good as it is, but if I say you raped a 5-year-old, which is what it is, so I would like us to get rid of the word defilement. Children, they are at the Chilanga feeding program that I do every week. This week we heard about a child, small, tiny, little thing, who's got syphilis.
Oh my. Yeah, because now we have an outbreak of syphilis for the first time in the last 40 years.
Under 10.
My God.
She has syphilis.
And there's no attention to that crime or to the victims.
So we don't talk about that. We don't talk about just the absolute, the burden in healthcare that's given to women as bedsiders. Do you know how much money women save this country by being bedsiders? By doing nurses' jobs. Because if we removed every bedsider, we'd have to employ
the nurses. And help us.
Me, I can be a bedside. In my family, if somebody is sick, you see, I can only be a bedside if it's my husband who's there. Or my child. Some of us. But if it's my cousin there or my sister there, we'll find the poorest person in the family. So who's carrying the burden of bedside?
So women.
We do not take care of them. They sleep. Have you been to UTH at night?
No. It's terrible. It's sad. I've been there.
They are sleeping on the corridors.
Cold floors.
Have you heard the women's movement talk about that? That this country is abusing its women folk as bedsiders. When they become bedsiders, they don't go and sell at the market. They don't do what? Nobody talks about it. Even GBV, another sanitized issue. Gender-based violence.
We looks like just a policy.
No, we don't talk about how it affects the poor and the rich. Early marriages. We don't talk about how early marriages. Emmanuel, 15 years.
No, it's not possible.
It's not possible. Your child can be actually below average intelligence, as I see is a grade 12. You know that? Do you have a friend whose child has not finished grade 12?
No.
I don't. In my family, all of us who are educated, our children all chikare have a grade 12 as a citizen. Have you ever heard of any of us at our level, our children are getting married daily? No. But we talk about early marriages as if it is about people just wanting money. It's about people just wanting lobola. We don't talk about how it is an issue of poverty. So the girls getting married are the poor.
Yeah.
If we deal with poverty, if we deal with education, if we open boarding schools, we will have dealt with early marriages. If early marriages was a cultural thing, if it was about sex, sometimes we make it look like it's about promiscuity. No one is talking about the outbreak of alcohol abuse among the poor. They are drinking like mad.
We're calling them junkies.
Okay, so it is that for me. Yes.
So the women's movement needs alignment.
The women's movement needs... Okay, you see, you're putting me in trouble now. These are my friends. So, but
we discuss issues.
But you see, so the women's movement, as far as I'm concerned, is not doing a quarter
of what they need to do.
What is needed for a country like Zambia. We import problems from Norway. No, the national anthem should have gender-sensitive language. I agree, maybe, but that is a story
A least
of
problem.
years from now. We talk about proportional representation. For who? It's not for the person at the
To
bottom.
be for the elite again.
It's for the elite. And when they get in, these women who went, when have you ever heard, the few women who've been appointed? What have they actually done about water, about early marriages, about child rape? Do you ever hear them? Do they sound any different from the men?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
So you rarely hear me talking about appointments because the point is, okay, do you know, I mean, if I really wanted an appointment,
You would have gotten it.
you know what I mean?
Your position at the Human Rights Commission is token, literally, because there's even no money to it.
No, there's no money, but the Human Rights Commission, I got it because it's my kind of work. You know what I mean? In the Human Rights Commission, I can be a Human Rights Commissioner and I continue doing my
Your
work.
work.
So I continue criticizing President Hichilema. If he makes me minister,
You sleep, yeah.
you know, he'll have gagged me.
Yeah.
You know, if he makes me ambassador, he'll have gagged me. But what I'm saying is,
Did you, just there, because some people think you are quiet or you are soft on Hichilema because of jobs. Your fellow members in the civil society, some are now ambassadors, some people from civil society are heading key institutions, including being permanent secretary. Has that affected you? Do you think that they learned their voice for reward, political rewards?
you know what? I find it very, okay. Let me not criticize people. So there are people who are very good where they are. I think Pamela is a waste. Pamela Chisanga is a waste as an ambassador. She should have been made minister because she's brilliant.
Yeah.
If you're going to appoint Pamela, give her a job worthy. Not your ambassador ku Botswana. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That woman is brilliant.
Yeah.
So I think that's a waste. Or make a PS instead of some of the people you've made PS.
Yeah.
Okay? But there are people like, for example, Judy Mulenga, who had retired. No question. You know what I mean?
Okay.
She had already retired. So, but the others who've gotten, I think that it's a waste to appoint certain people. So if you appoint me before I retire, as a minister, it's a waste. Because it's easier to get a minister than to get a civic actor. You know, to create a civic actor who is probably trusted, who understands civic work, who understands our constitution, who is able to run with the issues. So, okay, let's say remove Zambian civil society. Chiluba would have remained. You know that?
Yeah.
People say civil society is weak, civil society is not talking. Civil society in Zambia goes to sleep when it wants to go to sleep. But whenever, when there's an issue. Right now, what do you want civil society to be screaming about? Do you understand? You know, because I always say to people, if my former husband used to beat me, come at 02, brought me 4 children from outside, Shanshan, and I was always screaming on the roof. Then I marry another one. Okay, na ni chakulwa, but sani menya, at least tundio tripo pa nyumba. If you still find me as shrill, who's mad? Is it me who's mad? Because we respond according to the issues. UPND has problems, but it is not PF. You know, PF used to give us...
You're still giving them honeymoon?
No, it's not honeymoon. We're not giving them honeymoon. We respond. It is us who talked about the ATI. It's civil society. When you're arrested, we talk. You know, but we don't have scandal after scandal like you guys used to give us. So you remember, there was for 242 today. Mairo Honeybee, Mairo Chani, Mairo Bakata Wemenya. Do you understand? So we had to be on our... And then our democracy looked like it was about to die. Our democracy doesn't look like it's about to die. So I can assure you, if President Hichilema dares to mess this country up, civil society will be there. So
let me read you a few reports.
Let me just finish.
The International Monetary Fund report of 2022 says our country has so much tension arising from legacy issues such as poverty and the new issues such as corruption and the shrinking democratic space. The International Economic Intelligence Unit has a similar report speaking to the tensions this country has descended to just in the last 2 years. You've probably heard voices here and there. What crisis are you waiting for?
But is it true?
Or you think the reports are not true?
No, they're not. I live here. You know what I mean? Emmanuel, isiwenzeko iwe. You know.
No, I'm here. I'm arrested every day.
Emmanuel presentation.
I'm tear gassed. I lost my tooth. Maybe we've taken step. We've switched sides.
Let me tell you what the difference is. Emmanuel, let me tell you where UPND is clever.
Yeah.
UPND is clever in that it harasses its rivals, but not ordinary citizens. PF, you know, if PF used to harass only HH and UPND, it would still be in power. So the difference is, if you are an ordinary citizen selling your tomato, your problem is hunger. But you can wake up at 04, buy your tomato, sell it, no one will come and ask you for 10 kwacha on top, 5 kwacha. That was the biggest problem with PF, that they took their dictatorship and their harassment to the common man. So right now, there's no tension with the common person. But yes, which is what I'm telling you. And I've written about this. I've said that because we are ignoring the excesses of UPND, because they're doing them against people we don't like. But that's wrong. I think it's wrong. And whenever people are arrested, I'll say it. I think it's wrong. Don't go and arrest people and keep them in cells for excessive periods. And don't make it a hobby. But you've got to understand that the reason why there's no noise about it, one is that you are PF. The memory
is still fresh.
And the things you did were worse than what UPND is doing to you. Okay? So it's that, I think, kind of, should I say, conflict in people's minds. You know, airport. You see that kind of thing. So there's that, but I don't think so. The same way, like I think that President Lungu should not have been denied his
access to medical treatment.
Maybe I don't know about medical where I was really denied, but I think that President Lungu should have a bodyguard, President Lungu should have a vehicle,
or state benefits.
I don't know about other things. Maybe you can deny him the actual salary, whatever. But he is a former president. A former president is an office. You can't have your former president kidnapped by a Bo. You know what I mean? Who's going to be embarrassed? It's us. So the former president, I think, should be protected, should be accommodated. It's about dignity. You know, it's a bit like having your parent, okay, he annoys you. As a gonna punch. No, you know what I mean? It reflects not on him or on her, but on you. So what I'm saying there, I was talking about civil society. I was saying that if you look at civil society in Zambia, if you remove it, would have had the third term
for Chiluba and for Edgar Lungu.
The thing would have passed. Butane would have passed. Zambians would not have known the extent of PF corruption when they fought 2 to 42 and all that. No, Zambians would not have turned out to vote like they did. So what I'm saying is that yes, we can go quiet, but we have proved that in Zambia it's better to close a political party than to shut down the opposition. Because the opposition is what has carried this country for so many years. Okay? I'm not going to say, that's why I was saying that I feel very sad when president after president picks off members of civil society. You know, like established members of civil society who are experts. Then you give them these political jobs.
Token jobs,
which are going nowhere anyway, you know. Because once you enter the political side, you can't come back
to civil society.
It's
and how long did it take to train a Laura Miti?
How long did it take? You know what I mean? To develop my thinking. But for me, no, I can't take a political job. I can't. You know, I'm sure.
How's your work at the Human Rights Commission?
It's all right. You know, Human Rights. Human Rights Commission. Human Rights Commission needs a new law. You know, we've got a very good commission right now. Brilliant. You know, I think it's a long time since we had such great. Pamela, you know, you've got Father Komakoma joining us. You have Father Chikoya. You've got Panic now. You have Felicity. Sorry, I'm calling them by their first name. Sorry, commissioners. Okay. So you've got Commissioner Chama and that kind of thing. I think that even when you sit in our meetings, it's a great space. You know, in Zambia, it's rare that you sit in a space where people are speaking intelligently. It's very rare. So the commission right now is a brilliant commission. But the law is constricting.
Yeah.
You can't.
You can prosecute.
You can't prosecute. The commission is underfunded, completely. Establishment so low. It's at 40% establishment. But remember how the Human Rights Commission stood up tall during PF. They fought to stand up and remain independent.
Yeah.
And I think that's the reason why I agreed to be in the Human Rights Commission, because it's an independent voice. It's one commission, I think, that needs to be well-funded, capacitated, and also always put in independent people, and also don't make it so easy for them to be removed, because all of us can be removed any day. Also, I mean, like, to be on the commission, commissioners are given 3,000 kwacha a month. The amount of work
that
required.
You put in.
So you end up with maybe people, should I say, prioritizing other work, because I'm paid by the ACA. My full-time work is the ACA. So, and Pamela's full-time, the chairperson's full-time work is at the university. Right now, I don't know whether she has enough time to sleep, because as chairperson of the commission, that's a lot of work. Then she has to lecture, you know what I mean? And then she does other work. I think that maybe the chairperson should be given, maybe a full-time role at the commission, and also fund the commission in such a way that, especially the staff, the secretariat, because we are not a full-time commission. So the secretariat should be able to do its work. We should be able to respond to the important things. Again, another thing that bothers me at human rights in Zambia is that, like the women's thing, when we talk about human rights, but Emmanuel really can really sort himself out if he wants. You know what I mean? Emmanuel,
he can find a lawyer.
He can find a lawyer. My law.
Well, there's something I discovered. Every time I'm locked up in these police cells, there are cases, for example, how the police have been turned to be debt collectors.
Yes.
That abuse of the police must be spoken to. Many people are locked up because of civil debts. The police have a way of turning that law, obtaining money by false pretenses. And they never prosecute these cases. You are locked up to use you or your relatives to look for money to pay the debt.
It's crazy.
That I'm usually
when we were locked up, there was a child in Zanaba Tropical.
Yeah.
10 kwacha.
Yeah.
Juveniles like this in a cell full of fecal matters. One they used to punish me. The fecal matter, then they remove them and they put me in there.
Yeah.
So it's
things like that.
It's things like that.
Yeah.
But beyond that, it's the amount of time that a person with no lawyer will spend. We write laws in this country for the rich. Actually, you need 2 working sureties. There are people in this country with not one person in their family.
Yeah, true.
But their pastor maybe can sign, or even someone at the market who has a stand. She won't run away.
Yeah. No, in this country they want civil servants or leaders. Or
someone with a market stand at Tendere Market who's been there for 10 years is as established. Dear fixed a board.
As a civil servant.
Dear fixed a board. But we don't. So we, as the Human Rights Commission, you find that, and not only as a Human Rights Commission, Zambians, when they talk about rights, this one has been arrested. We talk about Public Order Act. The Public Order Act doesn't in fact affect ordinary citizens. It affects civil society and people up there. I think I'm speaking for many others on the commission, it would be great if in our term of office we made movement on what affects ordinary people. The filth. Why can't you have a flush toilet in the cell? When you and I sleep in the cell, or someone will give us a mattress.
Yeah.
True. The officer in charge will come and greet you and probably call you sir.
Yeah.
So there's a way in which, even on the worst of times,
we have the best.
Let's look at what's happening to ordinary people.
Yeah, true.
That's it, isn't it?
Laura, this has been an eventful journey. I'm so glad that you came to the Conversation podcast and sincerely gave yourself to it, and we've had an honest conversation. You're one person who speaks truth to power, whether it offends or not. And because, like you say, you speak sincerely your beliefs, and you've done justice to that. What are your last words before we close?
My next words is we have a beautiful country. You know, what's not to love about Zambia? And we take it for granted. You know, there's a way in which Zambians sometimes are reckless with our good. So let's fight to be constitutional. Let's not fear to speak up when the party we voted into power, because we are the majority. Those of us who voted for UPND are the majority. Therefore,
and you're not even UPND.
I'm not UPND. No, but I'm just talking about the number of citizens who voted for UPND are the majority. Therefore, we are the ones who should speak. If you leave for the minority to speak against excesses of the party in power, then the party in power will never be held to full account, because the majority are always its supporters. More importantly, let's look out to have policies that affect the poor. We need to lift this country and look downwards. Whether it's education, when you do a policy, when you write a policy, write it remembering that the poor are the majority. Health. You know, when you say, for example, that to pay school fees, you must use Bill Master. Why want to Bill Master?
What is Bill Master to ordinary people?
You know, you say you must go to commercial bank. Is there a commercial bank in Chawaba? Is there a commercial bank in Mandevu? So you're saying that this person looking for 300 kwacha must find another 50. Nishio 300 kwacha, they fought so hard to find it. So by just that policy, you are sidelining people. And most of our policies in this country are designed for you and me. And so for me, whether it's this government, the next government, whichever government will come into office, let's run this country for the majority. The majority are poor and weak.
Oh, wonderful. Laura Miti, I'd like to thank you for coming. And our dear viewers, we had such a wonderful time with one of Zambia's eminent voices, civil society, a guru, I would call you. And until next time, until we have another guest, God bless our country. God bless Zambia. Shalom, shalom.
Thank you, Emmanuel.
Bye.